So I'm headed into the aviation part of the Henry Ford Museum, right outside of Detroit, Michigan. What we're looking at here is a DC-3 built by Douglas, one of the most iconic planes ever. The military used a version of this called the C-47 Skytrain, and it was the plane that the paratroopers jumped out of during D-Day. I've been in a number of these. If you want to check out what it looks like inside, see my Oshkosh videos. I've also been inside one called the CH-47 Spooky Gunship, which is essentially one of these with 3 big miniguns sticking out the side of it. And then there's also a company called Basler that converts these from radial engines to turboprops. Something really cool. I've seen one of those at Oshkosh as well. Okay, moving along. Adventures in early flight. It's a map of all the planes that they have in the process here. And we are there, headed to the middle right now. Looks like what we got ourselves here is a replica of the Wright Flyer. Not sure if this is the first one or the second one. The Wright brothers built a number of these, so let's take a look. Well, I didn't bother reading all that. Let's keep moving on. Which brother this is, I have no idea. Hey buddy, who are you? The way he sat, or not even sat, he laid down. Engine was right beside him. And the other thing is this aircraft didn't even have wheels, it just had these rails. And sliding rails, kind of like a train track type thing. You can see it right there. Old-fashioned camera with the big bellows on it. Okay, so I guess they set this up like a scene from one of the original photos. Pretty cool. And for those of you who don't know, the Wright brothers, they actually built bicycles before they started their aviation pursuit. This is interesting because it looks like a plane, but if I zoom up a little further, holy smokes, it's got a rotor on it. I'm not even sure what you call this. It's like a hybrid between a helicopter and a normal airplane, fixed wing, gyrocopter. Even though the Wright brothers were the first to take flight, there were other people in other parts of the world that were also experimenting with flight, including this guy in France. And apparently he crossed the channel in this aircraft. Not positive, but I believe that's a Gnome rotary engine, where the crankshaft is fixed and the cylinder bores and the engine block, essentially connected to the propeller, rotates around the crankshaft. Kind of interesting. It's like a bunch of different props that they tried out, all made of wood. Another weird looking contraption here. Igor Sikorsky. Very popular name. They still make lots of helicopters. The Black Hawk is a Sikorsky. I think the Marine One is a Sikorsky as well, the one the president flies in. So you can see this is much later, 1939. World War II was probably just about to start when this took off. All those belts right there. Beside that is the mechanism and how they control the pitch of the rotors. Pretty sophisticated stuff, if you ask me. And you can see the drive shaft down here that goes to the tail rotor. Camera's having a hard time focusing because it's such a small thing, but and I apologize, this is just a straight helicopter. It doesn't have a prop on the front of it like the other plane that we looked at earlier. I was mistaken. I think this might be even some earlier pioneers to flight. They were just flying in gliders. This was the first guy to actually fly, and he flew to his death. Flying circus here. Just gotta look at that engine. It's cool because you can see the rocker assembly. So it looks to me like this is actually a Hemi V8. Valves on either side of the combustion chamber. 8 cylinders. Alright, I have no idea what's going to be in here. Oh, it's kind of cool. Dizzy. Modern people doing what the original guy did. I do. I'm getting air sick. I better get out of here.
Yeah.
Okay, a Fokker aircraft. Let's see, this plane has no wheels. It has skis. It's a tri-motor aircraft. I haven't looked at the Ford tri-motor yet, but we will soon. Engine in the nose and an engine beneath each wing. Let's take a look at the chord of that wing. I don't know if you guys can see, but it's it is thick. I don't even know. Almost 2 feet it looks like. A lot of lift. A lot of drag.
Well, that was the last try for the day. She's just not getting up enough speed on the sides.
We're not going to be able to fix that broken ski either. We'll have to put on one of the extras we brought along.
Make sure you wax it down well with even more shoe polish. It must not have been slippery enough. I could feel the drag on that last run.
Admiral, there was something I wanted to talk to you about. Mr. Balkin said...
Balkin? He's working for Amundsen and his airship. We can't trust him.
Well, Admiral, I asked him to come over and talk with us. At this rate, we'll never get off the ground. Talking to him couldn't hurt.
I guess if that's what it takes to be the first to the North Pole, then let's hear what he has to say.
Admiral,
Mr. Bennett, that was quite a crash you had there. Yes, we're still learning how to take off with the skis. I might be able to help you. You might want to do a couple of things differently.
What do you think we could do?
That shoe polish you're using to wax your skis doesn't really work. I've got a mix of pine tar and resin here, and it's worked for me. Thank you.
It's for racing, so it's really streamlined. Here we have a replica of the Spirit of St. Louis. Not sure why it's so dark in here. This was the first plane to fly from America to Europe, flown by Charles Lindbergh. One of the interesting things I think about this aircraft is that it didn't have a windshield. Instead, the pilot had essentially like a periscope thing he would look at it when he wanted to see where it was. I wonder if this airplane crashed the way it's in this nosedive configuration here.
This is Hans Werner with news from Munich, Germany. Today arrives the daredevil American airplane flying free and raw on the way east from Austria. Their endurance levels will only get forward. They can improve flight to the Far East and back to America.
Shake my head and body roughly. Flex.
Hello, America. This is Randy Bajra in Calcutta.
Almost around the
We see
world.
the Detroit airplane has landed, and two American aviators are waving to the people surrounding them. Our city has never seen anything like this. This is the biggest airplane India has ever seen fly over our land.
Yes.
Live from Fulham, so we know
I must have been looking at some stars.
we wish you and prosperity in Japan.
I took off my helmet.
The most dangerous land for all flyers will be Pacific Ocean. Many have died before them. Pacific may be too far from American airplane.
Ghostly presences.
Ladies of your special people, pilots Mr. Shea and Mr. Buff, safely in Tokyo. After surviving terrible tests, we interrupt this regularly scheduled broadcast for a special news bulletin. This is Roger Allen reporting for WWJ. July 1937, and Amelia Earhart is missing. Somewhere in the Pacific, faint radio signals from her airplane were heard. But several days have passed since a trace of the daring pilot or her navigator friend Noonan has been seen or heard. Authorities
This is
have
Amelia
staged the world's
Airport's
most
plan.
massive search and rescue operation. Over 4,000 men.
No one knows whatever happened to her. But she was the first woman to do a transatlantic flight.
In a desperate effort to rescue Miss Earhart. Rumors are flying around that Miss Earhart did not have an expert's grasp on the Lockheed Electric radio system. The tiny Howard Island, their destination, was too difficult a target to hit. As the days since her disappearance continue to mount, we begin to fear the worst and savor the memories we all share as admirers of America's free of the air. It's seemed like only yesterday when each passing year brought another record to celebrate from this era. There was the thrill lady that began in 32 when she single-handedly flew her trusty and powerful Vega across the Atlantic, something no other woman ever did. As her fame and celebrity grew, she kept the youthful spirit of adventure that gave her.
There she is. Airplane on her final flight.
Beauty and bravery that will always remember.
Boeing. There's a name we've all heard. V12 engine here. And a big radial engine. Let's see how many cylinders we got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 cylinders. Radials are always odd cylinders. Unless, of course, they have multiple rows, and they could be an even number of cylinders, but it's still an odd number of cylinders per bit. Okay, so here's the Ford Tri-Motor that I was talking about earlier. It looked kind of like that Fokker aircraft. And the thing about this aircraft is it was the very first all-aluminum plane. If you look closely, the skin is made out of like a corrugated aluminum. I believe there was a plane in Germany, the Junkers. That was an aluminum aircraft as well. However, it wasn't totally aluminum. The control surfaces are still fabric. This one's all aluminum. And I've seen these fly numerous times. I've even had the chance to go on a ride for one. I made a video of it as well. And in the top right-hand corner right now, you could take a look at that video as well. It is spectacular. It costs $77 to fly on it, and I plan on doing it again in the near future.
I named this little officer Tread because he's from Paris. That means 13. 13 is my lucky number for 3 reasons. First, because it was good publicity. Second, because other people wouldn't want it. Third, the number 13 just kept on.
But a lot of people didn't know that Henry Ford was in the aviation business.
Today the rugged West will unroll the East.
Ford airplane. This one much smaller. Then much smaller. So we have the tri-motor, and we have the tri-cylinder. Cylinders. Just kidding, I have no idea what it's called. It's called the Ford Flivver. shit, what's going on here? So, kind of radar devices? Or? This stuff operates the lights in the runway? I don't know. Look at this thing. Okay, so I think we've seen all the airplanes on the ground. Let us go up on the balcony. See them from above. Actually, before we do that, though, let's take a look at this thing over here. Just kind of compares the size of different aircraft and their interiors. Boeing 737 is the biggest on here, which of course is kind of a small commercial airliner by today's standards. Then we have the Douglas DC-3, the one that we saw. Actually, it's right back here. First one we saw. Ford Tri-Motor, of course. Small green Boeing. That was occupied, so to the next. Most of the ones I've been in, though, were the military transport type ones that had all the seats along the sides, just kind of like bench seats. And here we are into more modern aviation, the Boeing 737 interior. So this is kind of old because they have these like weird cell phone things here.
The world's first successful airplane. But before they became aviation pioneers, the brothers owned this tiny bicycle shop. In 1938, it was moved to the Henry Ford from Ohio. It was inside this shop that the Wright brothers would make discoveries that would change the world.
I can't get my luggage out either.
Matt Anderson is curator of transportation.
Section of the 737 compared to a DC-3. Like I said, if we were to look at a 747 or a Airbus A380, it would dwarf this thing. Those are wide-body aircraft, so they have 2 aisleways, and I think some double-deckers as well. I'm trying to think. I think a 747 in configuration has I think 9 seats across. I don't know about an Airbus. Just to give you a perspective of how much bigger that would be. 777 Boeing aircraft, what it looked like. You can see the seats are staggered. Navigator and pilot.
Well, oh yeah, it was like 5 hours.
Never flown in a biplane. That's something I want to do at some point. Okay, upstairs now.
Look where you're going. Keep your ears all the way with this. All the way down there, you see a radio communication. Where it sets off a tone. Morse code letter A, Morse code letter N, dot, dash, dash, dot.
Apparently they had a tour here that I missed. I didn't know
And as
about
you get
that.
closer to the airport, you hear one solid tone. If you are on course, you can hear one solid tone.
Well,
You start veering off the one way or the
my
other.
tower's better anyway. Alright, let's go look at the Ford motor. The Ford tri-motor. Two pilots, or a pilot and a co-pilot would sit up there, and the one I flew at least, it looked quite comfy. You know, their shoulders weren't touching or anything like that. So. Okay. Tri-motor. Oh yeah, this is great over here. Again, looking at those wings, that cord is just thick as heck. Started to feel on the wings as well. So. These airplanes have to be staggered like that because the DC-3 wing would hit the tri-motor wing. DC-3. It's kind of the first modern looking airliner if you think about it. All aluminum, all smooth aluminum. It's not that corrugated stuff that tri-motor has. It is a tail dragger aircraft though, so it has two wheels in the front and then a small one back here, you see. The rudder and the elevators look normal. Never heard of Northwest Airlines. I've heard of Southwest Airlines. I've flown them a number of times. So again, this is just, cannot stress how important this airplane was. It pretty much paved the way for aviation, that the way we have it today, where you can go to your airport, go fly somewhere in a matter of a few hours. You know, prior to World War II, it was available, but it was only for people that had tons of money. After World War II, so many of these were built. A lot of them were converted to be operated by passenger airliners. You know, it wasn't just America that flew these either. There was like probably almost 10 countries that either bought these from the United States or built them under license. Got all that exploring stuff to do. Steam powered mining equipment, generators, whatever that stuff is. Stay tuned. Okay. There's the Wright Flyer again, very first aircraft. Okay. Leave orbital right with the controls. Launching over as the airplane took flight. I always think it's amazing that the first aircraft took flight in 1903, and then fast forward 66 years later, and we landed a spaceship on the moon. Mural down there. I haven't gone yet, but I've been meaning to go to the Reno Air Races one of these days. I love World War II aircraft and seeing all those modified World War II planes flying and racing. It's just got to be awesome. Call it the fastest sport in motorsports, because they do like 500 miles per hour. Formula One only does, or IndyCar is over 200. Flyer again. I've seen so many replicas of this airplane, so it doesn't interest me a whole lot, even though it's such a iconic plane. Started it off. And then here's that Fokker tri-motor again. Very cool. Very similar to the Ford one. I was looking at Freddie Mercury at first. French plane with the wooden fuselage. Let's go look at that rudder and tail section.
No, not true.
It's definitely different. Weirdest plane of them all in the museum here. Well, like I said earlier, if you can call it clean. See how that rotor gets power up there. There's a little drive shaft. Goes down to some type of gearbox down here. Two-seater. No gauges as far as I can see. And there's the Sikorsky helicopter. Back side up. See the engine. Power takeoff pulleys. Okay, so I think that about it concludes the tour of all the aircraft on display here at the Henry Ford Museum. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned some new stuff. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment. And I think next we're going to go look at some of these cars. So take a look at my next video. Be on the lookout, guys. Peace.